A lively party fills a suburban home with laughter and chatter. Everyone seems happy, but a quiet tension hangs in the air. Bella shares flirty looks with David, while her husband Robert talks to friends nearby. Secrets lie beneath the surface, ready to change everything. Could love lead to betrayal? What happens when jealousy turns deadly? Bella was a vibrant woman in her early 30s. She had always been full of life. Bella loved to laugh and enjoy time with friends. But lately, she had felt trapped in her marriage. Each day felt the same. Her husband Robert was a good man, but their connection had faded. Bella often felt lonely and unfulfilled. Robert worked hard, was dedicated to his job, and provided for their family. He thought everything was fine at home. Robert was kind and loving, but he was often busy. He didn't notice the little signs that Bella was unhappy. He believed their life together was perfect. But Bella longed for more. She wanted excitement and passion, feelings that had slipped away. Enter David, Robert's younger brother. David was charming and adventurous. He had a way of lighting up a room. Bella felt drawn to him in a way she hadn't felt in years. When David visited, he brought laughter and joy. He made Bella feel alive again. The two shared playful banter that Robert did not understand. David's presence awakened feelings in Bella that she thought were lost. As Bella and David spent more time together, a spark ignited. Bella needed clarification. She loved Robert, but craved the thrill that David brought. She felt guilty for her growing attraction, but couldn't help it. David, sensing Bella's struggle, flirted with her. He enjoyed the attention and made her feel special. Bella's heart was torn. She loved Robert's stability but yearned for David's excitement. This inner conflict created a storm inside her. She knew she had to make a choice, but the fear of hurting Robert held her back. The three were caught in a delicate balance. Robert remained unaware of the tension brewing between Bella and David. He saw only the surface, believing their lives were perfect. Meanwhile, Bella's heart pulled her in two different directions. She wished for a happy marriage but couldn't ignore her feelings for David. As summer faded, the tension grew. Bella knew she had to decide soon. Could she continue living this double life? Or would the truth come out, leading to heartbreak for all? The choices they made would lead to unexpected consequences. Bella's longing for change could unravel everything she held dear. This story begins in a seemingly perfect home, but beneath the surface, emotions are boiling. Each character has their own dreams and desires. Bella's quest for happiness will set off a chain of events no one can predict. The stage is set for love, betrayal, and a shocking twist no one sees coming. Bella felt lonely in her marriage. Robert was busy with work, and she missed feeling special. Then David, Robert's younger brother, came into her life. He was charming and fun, and being around made Bella feel alive again. One evening, they found themselves alone in the backyard. The sun was setting, painting the sky with colors. Bella and David sat on a bench laughing and talking. Their conversation was light, but there was an unspoken tension between them. Bella felt butterflies in her stomach as David leaned closer. David looked at her with a smile. "You have the best laugh," he said, blushing Bella. His words made her heart race. She loved the way he saw her. It differed from how Robert looked at her, like she was just another part of his life. As they talked, Bella noticed how David's gaze lingered on her. His eyes sparkled with interest. She felt the heat rise in her cheeks. It was thrilling and scary at the same time. Bella had never thought about David this way before, but now she couldn't help it. "Do you ever wish things were different?" David asked, his voice soft. Bella looked away, biting her lip. She thought about her marriage. She loved Robert, but she also craved excitement. "Sometimes," she finally admitted, "I just want to feel happy again." David nodded, understanding her. "You deserve to be happy, Bella." His words hung in the air. Bella felt a rush of emotions. Could this be real? She wanted to lean in closer, but fear held her back. What about Robert? The moment felt charged. Bella and David shared a look that said everything. Slowly, David reached out and touched her hand. It was a simple gesture, but it sent shivers down her spine. Bella could feel the spark between them growing stronger. "I care about you," David said softly. Bella's heart raced. She wanted to say something, but words escaped her. Instead, she just nodded. The truth was, she cared about him too. The attraction was undeniable. As the evening darkened, Bella felt bold. She leaned closer to David. He mirrored her move, and their faces were just inches apart. Bella could feel the warmth radiating from him. This was dangerous, yet she felt drawn to him. Then, without thinking, David leaned in and kissed her. It was soft at first, but soon it deepened. Bella's heart raced with excitement and fear. She was kissing her husband's brother. The thrill was intoxicating, but guilt washed over her. They pulled apart, both breathless. Bella's mind raced. "What are we doing?" she whispered. David looked at her with a mix of hope and fear. "I don't know, but I can't stop thinking about you," he confessed. Bella felt torn. She loved Robert, but this connection with David was powerful. They talked more, sharing dreams and fears. Bella opened up about feeling trapped in her life. David listened carefully, and she felt understood for the first time in a long while. As the night went on, they shared more kisses, each more passionate than the last. Bella knew they were crossing a line, but it felt so right. With each kiss, she felt alive and desired. But the guilt returned. What would happen if Robert found out? Finally, Bella knew she had to leave. "I should go," she said, her voice shaky. David's face fell. "Can we talk again?" he asked, hopeful. Bella nodded, her heart heavy. "Yes, we will." As she walked back inside, Bella felt excitement and fear. She had started something she couldn't stop. The affair with David had begun, and she knew her life would never be the same again. What happens when a secret can't stay hidden? Can Bella end her affair without losing everything? Bella felt trapped. Although the affair with David was exciting, it was also wrong. She loved Robert and didn't want to hurt him. After many sleepless nights, she decided to end things with David. One evening, Bella met David at their usual spot in the park. The air was thick with tension. She looked into his eyes and took a deep breath. "David, I can't do this anymore," she said, her voice steady but shaky. "I need to go back to Robert." David's expression changed. His face darkened, and he stepped closer. "What do you mean? You can't just walk away," he said, frustrated. "I care about you, Bella." Bella felt a rush of panic. "But this is wrong. We're hurting Robert. I can't keep lying to him," she replied, trying to stay calm. David's eyes flashed with anger. "If you leave me, I'll tell him everything," he threatened. Bella's heart sank. The thought of Robert finding out made her stomach churn. "You wouldn't," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Oh, but I will," David replied, his tone cold. "You think I'll just let you go without a fight? This isn't over." Bella felt tears welling up. She had hoped for an easy end, but now it felt impossible. The weight of the situation pressed down on her. She knew she had to be careful. David was not going to let her walk away easily. The tension between them was thick, and Bella realized that she was in deeper than she had ever thought. Bella felt nervous as she drove to the family cabin. She had decided to meet Robert there. She knew he was angry about her time with David, but she hoped they could talk and clear the air. Little did she know that things would take a dark turn. When she arrived, the sun was setting, casting shadows around the cabin. Bella walked inside, calling for Robert. "I'm here," she shouted, but there was no reply. The cabin felt cold and empty. Bella's heart raced as she walked deeper inside. Suddenly she heard raised voices. They came from the back room. Bella's stomach dropped. She recognized Robert's voice and David's voice. They were arguing. She rushed toward the sound, fear gripping her. As she got closer, the voices grew louder. "You think you can just take her from me?" Robert yelled. Bella could hear the anger in his voice. "You don't deserve her!" "Stop it, Robert, just listen to me!" David shouted back, trying to stay calm. Bella felt panic rise in her chest. She knew this was going too far. She had to intervene. She pushed the door open, but what she saw made her blood run cold. Robert and David were face to face, both looking furious. Robert's hands were clenched into fists. "You've ruined everything!" he yelled, his voice echoing through the cabin. Before Bella could say a word, Robert lunged at David. In a split second, everything changed. Bella's heart raced as she watched in horror. Robert pulled out a knife, his face twisted with rage. "Get away from her!" he shouted. "Robert, no!" Bella cried, but it was too late. Robert drove the knife into David. Bella felt her world crash down around her. David gasped, his eyes wide with shock. Bella rushed forward, her heart breaking. "David!" she screamed, tears streaming down her face. She fell to her knees beside him. David was bleeding, his breaths growing shallow. "Stay with me," she begged, her voice trembling. Robert stood frozen, shock replacing his anger. He had not meant for this to happen. "What have I done?" he whispered, staring at the scene in disbelief. Bella looked up at him, her heart filled with rage and sorrow. "How could you?" she yelled. "You killed him." David's eyes flickered as he tried to speak. "Bella, he began, but the words fell away. Bella held his hand, feeling his warmth slip away. "Please, David, hold on," she pleaded, but his grip weakened. The cabin was silent, except for Bella's cries. Robert slowly dropped the knife, horror washing over him. He realized that jealousy had taken everything from him. Bella felt a mix of anger and grief. She had lost David, and now everything was shattered. In that moment, Bella knew her life would never be the same. She had to confront the reality of what had happened. As she held David in her arms, she felt an emptiness inside her. The love she once knew was gone. All that remained was pain and heartbreak. The night was dark and quiet as Bella and Robert moved through the woods. They had just committed a terrible act. David was gone, and now they had to hide the truth. The weight of what they had done felt heavy in the air. With a flashlight in hand, they reached a secluded spot. The trees surrounded them, creating a curtain of shadows. Bella's heart raced with fear. She couldn't believe they were about to bury David. "Is this really happening?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "We have to do this," Robert replied, his tone cold and serious. He looked around nervously as if the trees could listen. Bella felt a chill run down her spine. They were in this together now, bound by a secret they couldn't share. They began to dig. The ground was hard, and Bella's hands shook as she worked. Each shovelful of dirt felt like a piece of her heart breaking. Robert remained silent, focused on the task. Bella glanced at him, seeing the struggle in his eyes. They both knew this was wrong. After what felt like hours, they finally had a deep enough hole. Bella's stomach churned as they prepared to lay David to rest. "I'm so sorry, David," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Robert's face was grim, showing no emotion. As they covered David with dirt, the weight of their actions sank in. Bella felt hollow inside. They had taken a life, and now they were hiding it. The darkness of the night matched the darkness in their hearts. Bella knew they could never go back. Their lives were forever changed. It was a quiet morning in the neighborhood. Birds chirped and the sun was shining. But something was off. Neighbors had heard strange noises coming from the cabin late at night. Whispers turned into worried conversations. They couldn't ignore it anymore. Mrs. Thompson, who lived next door, was the first to call the police. "I heard shouting and then silence," she told the operator. "Something isn't right." The police took her seriously. They dispatched a team to investigate. As the officers arrived at the cabin, Bella and Robert were on edge. They had spent the night hiding their secret, and now fear gripped them. What if someone had seen them? They watched from a distance as police cars parked in front of the cabin. Detectives stepped out of the cars, ready to ask questions. They looked serious. Bella felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She knew they had to be careful. The truth was dangerous. Detective Harris was in charge of the case. He was experienced and sharp. He approached the cabin, knocking on the door. Bella and Robert exchanged worried glances. Should they open it? Finally, Bella took a deep breath and opened the door. "Hello, officers," she said, forcing a smile. "What brings you here?" Detective Harris looked at her closely. "We've received reports of strange noises coming from this cabin. We need to ask you a few questions." Bella's heart raced. She nodded, trying to appear calm. As they talked, Robert stood quietly behind her. The detectives asked if they had heard anything unusual lately. Bella replied, "No, everything has been fine." She hoped her voice didn't shake. Detective Harris wasn't convinced. He took a step closer, studying them. "Are you sure? It's important to be honest." His eyes searched Bella's face for signs of truth. She felt sweat forming on her brow. Meanwhile, the other officers began to search the area. They looked around the cabin, peeking into windows and checking the ground. Bella felt panic rising inside her. What if they found something? The detectives continued their questioning. They asked about David and when Bella had last seen him. "He's just busy with work," she said, hoping to keep the focus away from him. "He hasn't been around much lately." Robert nodded, trying to back her up. "Yes, David has been focused on his job," he added, keeping his tone steady. But the detectives weren't satisfied. They knew something was off. Detective Harris decided to dig deeper. "We've spoken to some neighbors. They say they saw David at the cabin recently. Can you explain that?" Bella's mind raced. They couldn't know the truth. "Maybe they misunderstood," she stammered. "We've had friends over, but nothing out of the ordinary." Detective Harris narrowed his eyes. "We just want to make sure everyone is safe. If you remember anything, please let us know." He took a step back, studying them again. After questioning them, the detectives left to speak with other neighbors. Bella felt a wave of relief wash over her. For now, they had avoided the worst. But the tension was still there. They had to be careful. As the police continued their investigation, Bella and Robert stayed in the cabin. They whispered about what to do next. "We can't keep lying," Bella said, her voice filled with worry. "What if they find out?" Robert looked anxious. "We need to stick together. We can't let anyone know what happened. If we do, it will ruin everything." His voice was firm, but Bella could see the fear in his eyes. Days passed, and the investigation continued. Detectives spoke to friends and family, looking for clues. They interviewed people who had seen David last. The pressure mounted on Bella and Robert. They felt like they were living on borrowed time. One day, a detective came to speak with Bella again. This time, it was Detective Ryan. He was young but sharp. "I need you to think hard," he said, looking serious. "Can you remember anything unusual, anything at all?" Bella forced herself to remember. "No, I can't think of anything," she replied, trying to sound convincing. But inside, she was terrified. Detective Ryan wasn't convinced. "We'll keep investigating, but if you remember anything, please reach out." With that, he left the cabin, leaving Bella feeling uneasy. The days turned into weeks and the fear lingered. Bella and Robert felt trapped in their own lives. Every knock on the door made their hearts race. They were living in constant fear of being discovered. As the investigation continued, Bella knew it was only a matter of time before the truth came out. The weight of their secret was becoming too much to bear. They had to find a way to escape this nightmare before it was too late. What happens when the truth finally comes out? Will Bella stand by Robert, or will she choose to save herself? It was a quiet morning when everything changed. Bella was in the kitchen making coffee. The smell filled the air, but she felt uneasy. The police had been investigating for weeks, and Bella could feel the tension rising. Suddenly, there was a loud knock at the door. Bella's heart raced. She looked out the window and saw several police cars parked outside. Panic washed over her. What did they want? She hesitated, but then opened the door. Officers stood there, their faces serious. Detective Harris stepped forward. "Is Robert here?" he asked, his voice firm. Bella felt a chill run down her spine. "Yes, he's in the living room," she said, trying to sound calm. But inside, she was terrified. What were they going to do? The detectives walked in without waiting for an invitation. Bella followed them, her heart pounding. She found Robert sitting on the couch looking confused. "What's going on?" he asked, standing up. Detective Harris wasted no time. "Robert, we have a warrant for your arrest," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Bella's breath caught in her throat. She felt like the ground was shaking beneath her feet. "Arrest? For what?" Robert shouted, his voice rising. Bella could see the shock on his face. She wanted to scream, to run, but she felt frozen in place. "We have evidence related to the disappearance of David," Detective Harris explained. "You need to come with us." The words hit Bella like a punch. David was missing, and now Robert was being taken away. "No, I didn't do anything," Robert protested, but the officers moved in to place him in handcuffs. Bella watched in horror. She felt torn. She wanted to defend Robert, but deep down she knew the truth. As the officers led Robert to the door, he turned to Bella. "This is a mistake. You have to believe me." His eyes were wide with fear. Bella's heart broke at the sight of him in handcuffs. She wanted to comfort him, but she felt the weight of their secret pressing down. "Robert, please, just tell them the truth," she cried, feeling helpless. But Robert shook his head, his face filled with panic. "I can't. I didn't do anything wrong." Detective Harris pulled Robert out the door, and Bella followed, her mind racing. The neighbors were watching, their faces filled with shock. Bella felt their eyes on her, judging and whispering. She wanted to disappear. Outside, the officers placed Robert in the back of a police car. Bella felt tears in her eyes. "What will happen to you?" she asked, her voice shaking. "I'll be fine. They can't prove anything," he replied. But Bella could hear the doubt in his voice. She wanted to believe him, but fear gnawed at her. Detective Harris turned to her. "You may want to speak with us too, Bella. We need to know what you know." Bella felt a wave of panic wash over her. If she told the truth, would it hurt Robert? She hesitated, looking between the detective and Robert. "I don't know anything," she stammered, her heart racing. "I just want to go home." "Bella," Detective Harris said, his tone serious. "You need to understand the seriousness of this situation. If you know anything, it's better to tell us now." Bella felt trapped. She wanted to protect Robert, but she also wanted to protect herself. "I really don't know anything," she insisted, her voice rising. As the police car pulled away, Robert looked back at her, desperation in his eyes. "Bella, please, you have to believe me." His voice faded as the car drove off, leaving Bella standing alone on the sidewalk. In that moment, the weight of her choices crashed down on her. She felt torn between loyalty to Robert and the reality of what had happened. She knew they had made terrible decisions together, but could she live with the truth? The neighbors whispered among themselves. Bella felt their eyes burning into her. She wanted to scream, to explain, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she turned and walked back inside the house, feeling like a shell of her former self. Once inside, Bella sank onto the couch, her heart heavy. She had to think. What would she do next? The walls felt like they were closing in on her. She could hear the whispers of doubt in her mind. Had she done the right thing by staying silent? The reality of the situation hit her hard. Robert was in jail and their lives were forever changed. She could no longer pretend that everything was fine. The truth was out there, and she had to face it. Bella looked at Robert, whose expression was cold and hard. "He wanted to keep me under his control. I was scared to leave him, even after everything." Tears filled her eyes, but she wiped them away. "After the murder, I felt lost. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to protect myself, but I also loved David," Bella said, her voice breaking. "I didn't know how to face the truth." Detective Harris nodded, understanding her pain. "What did you do next?" he asked. Bella took a deep breath. "I stayed silent at first. I was afraid of what would happen to Robert and to me, but I realized I couldn't keep lying. I had to tell the truth." The room was silent as Bella's words sank in. She felt a mix of fear and relief. "I had to stand up for myself. I couldn't let Robert manipulate me anymore." As she finished her testimony, Bella felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She had shared her truth, and it felt freeing. But she also felt vulnerable. The judge nodded at her. "Thank you for your honesty, Bella." The tension in the room was palpable. Bella looked around and saw a mix of sympathy and judgment on people's faces. Robert's expression darkened. He had always been good at hiding his true feelings, but now it was clear. He was angry, and Bella knew he would not take this lightly. As Bella stepped down from the stand, she felt shaky but proud. She had faced her fears and told her story. The trial was far from over, but she had taken a brave step forward. In the back of her mind, Bella wondered what would happen next. Would Robert retaliate? Would the truth finally set her free? The courtroom buzzed with whispers, but all she could think about was her own journey. She had fought for her voice, and she wouldn't let anyone take that away again. What happens when the past catches up with you? Can Bella find peace after her choices? Bella stood alone at the gravesite. The sun was setting, casting a soft light on the ground. She felt a deep sadness wash over her. This was David's final resting place, and she couldn't believe he was gone. As she looked at the grave, memories flooded her mind. She remembered the laughter, the love, and the excitement they shared. But she also remembered the pain and the betrayal. Jealousy had destroyed everything. "I'm so sorry, David," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. She thought about Robert and how their choices had led to this moment. Bella felt a mix of anger and guilt. If only she had been stronger, things could have been different. She realized that her decisions had consequences. They were irreversible. Robert's jealousy had pushed him to a terrible act, and now they were both paying the price. Bella wished she could turn back time, but she knew that wasn't possible. Standing there, Bella took a deep breath. She wanted to find a way to move forward. She had to learn from her mistakes. Life was too short to be consumed by jealousy and fear. As she wiped her tears, Bella made a promise to herself. She would honor David's memory by living fully and honestly. "Goodbye, David," she said softly, stepping back from the grave. "I will remember you." If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more. Your support means everything.